Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman Budget Workshop. It is April 3rd and it is 5:41. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Danielle Brown.
Thank you. In front of you, you have the operating budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, the general fund. Go over the revenue. That's page 1 through 5. On page 1, you have taxes. That's property taxes, some of the franchise taxes, the business tax, and then the local sales tax are the main streams of revenue for taxes. That's $30,093,283. But the current budget is $29,108,900. Page 2, you have your revenue from permits and state revenue. You have $436,000 in permits, and you have $5,086,980 for state revenue, and that's mainly from the state sales tax. Page 3 is revenue from recreation, and then revenue from the library. Excuse me. Recreation is $34,000, and the library is $500. And page 5 is revenue from court fines. It is $231,500. On page 5, that is, 4 and 5 is other operating revenue. And you'll see in total that's $588,500. Under that I have the expenditures listed. There's a carryover from the current budget for state streets, capital of $6 million. So I have $3 million of that carried over into this 25-26 building budget. And Bruce will discuss that when he goes through the capital process. So that so $1,468,476 remain revenue over expenditures. So we'll go to, I guess, expenses. I've broken it, each department is a separate page. That's why there's so many, so I just thought that would be easier. Legislative, it's not much of a change. Then we have judicial. Sorry, I do also need to tell you there is a 3% increase in this budget. Next is city court. Followed by the city administrator. City recorder. Followed by the finance department. We have human resources. And just stop me if you have any questions on anything. The engineering department. We will be setting, with the new public works building, we'll be setting up an internal fund for that building. So all of the utilities will go to that fund, and office supplies and so forth. Thank you. We have IT. The next is the planning. We have codes. City Hall. Special census.
Hold on a minute, let me catch up.
Okay, sorry.
Page you on 20, 22?
22.
Special census is page 23 of 42.
Okay. Now, this is what's throwing me off. I got blank paper.
You have blank pages?
Yeah, I got a bunch of blank paper. I thought maybe I was being punished.
Jill's just stopped in her steps.
Okay, we're on 24, please. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And police is also on page 25 and ends on 26. Next, we have fire on page 27 of 42. That's continued on to page 28. Page 29 is streets. And it continues on to page 30. Page 31 is fleet, and it's also on page 32. Page 33 is culture.
Got a question for you on fleet. So, for the fire department fleet, that's a pretty big jump, about $50,000.
So we took the funds from the fire department and put those in the fleet department, just to make it easier. So we took $50,000 out of the fire budget and put it in fleet.
Okay, so it's still balancing out.
Same money, just in a different,
It just makes it easier
okay.
instead of having to try to break down the invoices.
I think the portion that was in fire was kind of a backup area in case it went over in the actual fleet department. They would start charging it to the fire department. So now we're just combining that in the fleet department.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
Correct.
okay.
34 is Parks and Rec. And that continues on to page 35.
One question there. Number 265, repair and maintenance grounds. Looks like it's going from 167,000 to 25,000?
Yeah, I think we added some, I don't know if there's a capital project that was added into there. And right off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a walking trail rehab maybe, and then we added some walking trail lights into that. So that was added for last year. If you see that, if you go back several years, it was averaging around 20,000, 17 to 20, I think it was 17.5, 20 some there. So we have bumped it up to 25,000, but that was like a one-time occurrence when it was 167 or 145.
Okay.
Okay, next on page 36 is economic development. And that continues on page 37. Page 38 is the library. And that continues on to page 39. Page 40 is public relations. Page 41 is the debt. And the last page is transfers. So you'll see that $3 million on the last page to capital projects streets. And the current budget is $6 million. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Just to reiterate, the majority of the changes are wages. I think insurance changed some in here as well, health insurance.
Yes.
Retirement also will change a little bit.
Well, yeah,
With
because
wages.
of the increase
Yeah.
in wages, that's correct.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, most of the items in the general fund or in any of the funds really for operating is just based on trends and then specific items that departments knew that they needed for this next year that are less than $10,000. Anything that's over $10,000 is on the capital item list that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. So as you're going through these, when you look at them at home or later on, whatever, keep that in mind. And if you have any specific questions about any of these line items, feel free to reach out and we'll try to explain what is coming out of those line items.
When it comes to revenues, I know we've got what we budgeted and what it is year to date, but when you're looking at the trending of how things are going, are you looking at us exceeding what our budget was, or being short, or where?
Current year?
Yes, for the fiscal year.
We're right on target. We're 96%. Usually have a budget 3% in bad debt. These numbers are based off of the current property assessments. I did reach out and get the most current. So that budget number of $9.2 million is based off of that, minus the 3% bad debt.
Okay, so when it comes to this year, not next year's budget, but this year's, are you expecting us to exceed what we budgeted?
Probably on target, the $9 million.
Okay.
This $79,750 transfer to the senior center fund. Is that more money we're gonna get at the senior center or what?
That's to pay the company that oversees the senior
Yeah.
center.
It's 50 forward.
50 forward.
You got Steve all excited.
To be honest, I wasn't even aware that we paid him.
You voted on it.
I know, but I didn't think it was, when I say we didn't pay him, it was that much. I thought it was a lot of,
No, it's a higher price because we take care of the portion that the seniors would pay.
right. Just want to make sure about that.
Bruce, you probably don't have the answer to this off the top of your head, but all of our franchise agreements are current. We're not in a spot to renegotiate any of those, are we?
As far as I know, they are. Of course, Xfinity is one of those that we've never gone back and redone because they now have a state, franchise and not just a city franchise. And I think we're operating under that at this time. But as far as I know, all of the other franchise, which there aren't that many, I think they're all up to date.
And do we have one for, what is it, U.S. Communications? They're now doing internet and telephone service in the city?
I don't believe we do, but there again, I think they have a state franchise.
Okay.
But I can certainly double check on that.
Yeah, I know that they have a specific area they work out of with Middle Tennessee Electric. It's part of their company. But that may be opportunities as well. Anyone else have any questions?
Danielle, I do have a question. On page 6, you've got the operating transfer of $3 million listed, but in the budget, in the line item budget under transfers, you have that 3 million. Is that the same 3 million, or is it in there twice?
No, it's the same, it's in there. So we'll have to show it on the face of it to show that we're transferring that out of the general fund, the operating,
Okay,
or fund balance.
double check that.
So I just wanted to show the revenue over expenditures. And without that, putting that in there, it made it a deficit with that $3 million in there.
Okay. Guys, if y'all think of any questions when reviewing this at home, you can reach out to Bruce and Danielle. Just do not email the rest of the board, please. And who's got the next part, Bruce?
Next, I have the nonprofit listing. I'll go over that real quick. I think those are still being printed, but I have it up on the screen for you. This is the listing of nonprofits. I'm sorry, to pull this over.
I can't see.
I can't,
Yeah.
where's Glenn?
This LASIK's coming in handy.
Where's Glenn?
So she's printing those. So Bruce, do you want to go? And then when she gets those, then I can go over the.
Yeah, we could start on the capital and then go back to the nonprofits. I'm going to be talking about this
Okay.
document, which is the capital item list, and primarily we're just going to focus on general fund tonight, but we will get down into a couple of the other smaller funds, but we'll wait until next week for water and sewer. So on the front, first page there for general fund, you'll see the two areas highlighted in yellow. Those are carryover items. One is for the engineering and the other is for codes. The engineering is the ADA transition plan, which is required by TDOT. We've already started that process. We have an agreement in place, so we're estimating that $500,000 from this current year's budget will have to carry over into next to pay for the remainder of that. The codes department is the condemnation and structure demolition. We are going to transfer, I think, $29,000 from that line item in this year's budget over into next. So the total carryover items is $529,000.
When we can, do we try to recoup that from whoever the property owner is for
I think we
structural?
can try to put liens on the
demolition.
property for that, but you just never know when you're going to be able
Yeah.
to recoup it, right?
Okay.
So we're not gonna end up paying for that. I mean, we sell it and have to pay to have it torn down? That ain't,
Correct. If it goes that far, then Evan will put a lien, they'll put a lien on the property.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't the codes building. This
No.
is the property that is identified for demolition throughout the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's correct.
Just to clarify.
this isn't the codes building?
No.
No.
It says
Correct.
structure. Where's it at?
Structure demolition. So it's any home that is deemed unfit or uninhabitable that has to come down. If the property owner won't do it, it will go through court, and eventually
Houses
with
that have been
court.
condemned.
Codes building.
No,
Buildings that have been condemned, houses or whatever.
right.
That's why I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce.
There's a long process that all of that has to go through, and
Very long.
it takes a lot of time. So, and a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot to make sure it's all done the right way. We'll skip the fund balance item. We'll come back to that because that's part of a future portion of this. In green, we have three items there that we are proposing to pay out of our existing bond. If you remember, a few years ago, we did a $17 million bond issue, which a lot of that obviously went to the new fire station. And then we still have, I think, $6.1 million left in the fund for that bond issue. So we're proposing the City Hall remodel in the existing bond issue which right now we're estimating at $650,000, and we'll talk about that more. The police station expansion, obviously, this is the planning, engineering, and architecture
Thank
at $1.1 million, and we'll talk about that further. And then the third item is the Fire Station 43 remodel, which that process has been started, but it's not been approved by the board yet. We've put out an RFP for an engineering firm to do the design work for that, and we should be bringing that to the board, I believe, at the next meeting for that approval. So that is in process, but we propose to pay for that remodel out of the existing bond issue. So when it comes to the City Hall remodel, originally we had in the budget $1.8 million, and we have lowered that substantially. This is a tricky subject, okay? As you know, we have a lot of needs when it comes to projects. The two biggest projects being South Waldron widening and the Blair Road West expansion. And if you look on page 3 of the document and go down to Fund 311, Streets Capital Projects, if you look at those two projects, Blair Road West and South Waldron Road, if you look at the proposed, or the expected, I should say, expenditures for 25-26 and 26-27, you've got almost $12 million in 25-26 and just over $12 million in 26-27. That's obviously just over $24 million total. We don't have $24 million just sitting around. So we will have to do a bond issue for that. And a $24 million bond issue, $25 million actually to make sure we cover the whole amount, would be approximately $1.85 million, which we do not have in the operating revenues over expenditures. So that's why if you go back to the fund balance item, we're proposing to put $3 million transfer from general fund, which would be from our reserves to the streets capital in order to pay for that bond issue, whatever that amount is going to be. So that being said, we've got those two big projects, and there's a lot of discussion about the new police station, which the last estimate that we have received for that, for the third option, I guess is the best way to put it, was right at $40 million. And there again, we don't have an extra $40 million. And we do not have the capability at this time to bond $25 million for the two road projects and $40 million for the police station. So the police station is going to have to be pushed down the road, I don't know how many years, maybe as many as 4 to 5 years, so that we can get the two road projects completed. And I'm specifically not looking at Brent because I'm afraid he'll shoot me, but, I'm kidding.
Well, I haven't looked that way.
So, the idea that we have discussed internally is for the City Hall remodel, is to bring a design proposal to the board to possibly move the remaining departments in City Hall, which would be finance, human resources, the remainder of admin. I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Court would stay here because of this room, and they have court in this room. And then Jerry would probably stay here because of being in the court room as well with this boardroom. But that could still be discussed and concerned later. We would still have to have meetings here because this is the only space that we have to have board meetings planning commission meetings, whatever. But the idea is if we move the city hall buildings to the new public works facility, there is a big area upstairs on the second floor where we could expand and move the remaining departments from here to there, which would open up space in this building, which would allow for a Band-Aid, and I'm specifically calling it a Band-Aid. We don't want this to be a long-term solution, for the police department to have some additional space for the next 4 to 5 years until we can build them the building that they need. So I'm putting that out there. I'm sure Gary can answer some questions because he's looked into this more than I have, and I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot if they have questions. But, we need to discuss what the board wants to do so that we can plan for it accordingly in the budget. The other option, of course, is we do the full remodel to this building, which may be $1.82 million. But that does not give the police department any space until we can build them the building. And I have mixed feelings about doing this. When we first started the project for the Public Works building, we were accused that we were going to move City Hall. And that was never the intention, never the plan. And now we are faced with that possibility. So obviously, you as the board members will need to make that decision which route we go. And obviously, there could be some political, fallout from making that change. Shocking, I know. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out for discussion and get your thoughts. If we do that, obviously this number here for the City Hall remodel will change. And then the planning and engineering and architecture for the police station, we would have to put on hold for, I don't know how many years, 3, maybe 4, in order to, plan it closer to the time we're actually going to build it. Any
Gary?
questions?
Gary, can you come up here? And I want to preference the statement with if, because I know how people can be, but if the board makes the decision to utilize the undeveloped portion of Public Works, what are we looking at roughly as a cost? Because I know we're talking about, City Hall, and if that's in play, not doing the police expansion portion right here, but we'd still have an expense for building that out because it's a giant open area right now.
Correct.
So roughly guesstimate what that would look like.
I believe, because we wouldn't be adding any bathrooms, the sprinklers are already in place, so we're looking at under $1 million. That is a guess being put on the spot.
Okay, he just guaranteed that. Y'all heard it on
Bring it up,
camera.
I'll sign it, let's do this thing. I'm about to retire anyway.
Kyle's on vacation watching this, clutching his chest right now. That's my big question, is the money part.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at the full remodel for this building, you're $1.82 million, whatever it might be, compared to hopefully less than $1 million to build out the new area. You would still have some work to do to this building in order for police to move over here, but it would not be, as substantial as what we're looking at for a full remodel here.
And what's important on this building is we have to keep what we remodel under 50% of the building. That's what triggers having to come to complete compliance with all the new codes. So that's why it jumps from 600,000 to 1.8 million, because that's going over that 50% margin.
Okay. Guys, what questions do y'all have?
What kind of, out of the police building over there, what kind of offices would move over here? If that were to happen, what would that involve moving over here? Or at least in your idea?
I would believe the CIB unit our Criminal Investigations Bureau would be certainly one. Bring them all, because we want everything under the same roof to the best of our ability. Because of communications, that separation causes a little bit of a challenge for us. I think we could expand a little bit on the communications center, bring records over here, and that would give them adequate space to be able to function and have a better operating area.
I
It's-
get it.
yeah.
You need time to think about that.
Yes, sir.
And I get it. So what do you think about if that were to happen and the police did that? People's gonna be coming in and out of this boardroom, courts, meetings, as far as any kind of interference with any kind of police.
Well, that would be blocked off. You would
Well, it
secure
would-
off the area.
It would be blocked off. I get that. But I still want to know, there's still going to be noise. There's still going to be people.
So if we were to plan it out effectively, again, the boardroom would still be intact, and whatever separation, there would still be a receiving area, reception there. So even if you put a wall straight down on this side, to where you have reception on that side, which could be the records division, and court still right here, that hallway is still accessible, but there'll still be a wall partition there. So I don't really think that it would be affecting us in any way.
And getting back to what Bruce said when he brought up the word political, if this goes through, if it will benefit the police department at a minimal cost to do this and move that over there and maintain the police for 4 or 5 years, we're not up on this board to get votes. Yes, there's been some talk about that, but that's not what we're up here for. My next question is, I guess I was under the assumption that the Waldron Road thing we had already had that money and bonded it, and we didn't need a new bond.
We bonded a portion of it. There was a talk at the time of 2 bonds, doing the first half and then doing the next portion when we got further along in it, because we wouldn't pay interest.
$6 million out total. Approximately 11 million of that went to the fire station. Just under 11 million, I think. I don't remember the exact number, but it's in that neighborhood. So
Those
that leaves
change
us with
orders.
about $6 million, which is what we still have. When we had planned it, we did plan for a small road project as part of it, which, if we only use, let's say, 3 million of the bond issue money, we still have $3 million that we could put towards the road projects, to where we don't have to bond 25, we might have to bond just 22.
Okay.
These are all things that are moving parts, so it's all dependent on what we decide in the budget talks to what direction we want to go. So yes, we still have some of those bond monies available, and we could still use them for the road projects, but we could also use them for these, to where we don't have to pay for them out of operating or whatever, out of fund balance.
Is it common, I'm new to this relatively, but is it common to bond only small portions of the project? Is that a common thing to do?
It is, because if you think about it, if we had to bond $50 million for South Waldron and Blair West, it's going to be a 5-year project to build both of those projects. So you'd be paying interest on that full $50 million for the 5 years, whereas if you do it in incremental parts, you're not paying as much interest over that same time frame.
Oh, okay.
So it is common that you split up the bond issues, but the board obviously has to be dedicated to finishing the projects that are already started.
So during this budget, we need to decide to leave things as they are, spend X amount of money to rehash this, or spend a larger X amount of money to let the police squeeze in and the rest of City Hall go over there?
While I'm not jumping up and down about this, Bruce he knows very well how I feel because he's heard it over the years. Because we took our lumps with a lot of, when we purchased that land over there. At the same time, there is a space needs assessment that was done back when Cena was mayor, Cena Mosley, and it showed the police department as an option occupying this building and eventually building a connector building between the two. That was part of the space needs, and some of that is where we got the wherewithal to start moving forward on public works, because that had a much bigger footprint than they even had land for over there. And if anybody needs to see it, it's probably out of date at this point, but it is, Bruce can get you a copy of it, but it walks through a lot of stuff, whether it's engineering and planning and codes, public works, talks about fire stations, the police station, and city hall.
Right.
So,
We had talked about building a new city hall at that point.
right.
And having the combination, with the connector building here for PD, and that was one of the big things out of that study, which obviously didn't get moved forward on.
Question for Gary. Understanding the 50% rule, being on planning, if we connected the two buildings, do you think that would exceed the 50%?
Well, there's a lot of ways to work around it. If you put a 4-hour firewall between them, then the new part would have to meet all the new codes, but the old part wouldn't necessarily have to do it. So and Joe can talk in more detail about this, but there's a lot of workarounds.
But at this point, we're not talking about a connector building. That's just, I mentioned that because that was part of the space needs assessment.
I understand, I'm just kicking stuff around, obviously we keep on the 50%. And there was discussion, I think, a couple of years ago about you needed a fence around the back of the property. Did that ever get secured and squared away?
Would it?
No, has it?
Oh, absolutely not, sir.
That was a big issue a couple of years ago, that's never got accomplished.
Yeah, that's part of the design for the new police department. But again, I know Bruce said 40, I thought it was 43 million.
I think it's right at 40.
But if we go that route, we have to figure out where that money comes from, though, because Miss Danielle could not find that for some reason. I think Vice Mayor No took all the money trees.
So then going back to the bond issue, because I was on the board then, just for the other board members, the bond issue, the total we got to finish Walden Road, South Walden Road, was the money we bonded. As time goes on, the costs keep going up, up, and up. So my thought process is we need to concentrate on and get them done, because the cost of getting stuff done is just, indirectly going up so dramatically that to keep pace with it is tough.
Correct. The original bond issue for 17, I think it was 17 and a half, was only half of what we had projected. The second half bond was for the Waldron Road project, because at that time we thought the cost was going to be around 18 million, which obviously it's double that now. So obviously, like you said, the costs have gone up substantially, and will continue to do so.
So I know it's not all at one time, it's in phases, but the $2 million that comes with Arbor Ridge, that was slated to go towards the road widening. Is that going to go to the general fund, or is that going to be earmarked for the road widening?
I don't remember exactly, and I don't remember it being quite $2 million, but we'll have to check into that.
If you look at the development agreement, we spent a ton of time on that, and I know Alderman Coates reviewed that, and Alderwoman Hobbs reviewed that quite a bit, the development agreement with Arbor Ridge. So,
Familiar with it.
yeah, we spent a lot of time on that. So I want to say it was $2 million.
I would have to look into that, because we've already received one of those payments.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where that went exactly, so I will check on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, because that was the intent with that board. And so I would personally like to see that earmarked, and that would help offset those costs, because that's how it was designed.
It was actually 300 times 3, it's 900,000.
It's 900,000.
I was thinking 900, yeah.
Thought it was 2. Still, if it's 900,000, that's 900,000 more. That's almost $1 million.
Oh, I get. And Bruce, going back to the calculations for Railroad West, the money, is that including what the developer that owns the commercial property that he's gonna require to be chipping? Does that include that? Because it is about $1 million worth.
I have to defer to Gary on that. He knows more about that project.
No, the costs that are put in there are the total construction cost, does not account for the commercial developer.
The commercial developer, he's required to build his portion of the road, and that's about $1 million.
Yep, that's Mr. Hunn, and that's, again, part of that development agreement. That may be where I'm getting 2 million.
Gary, you're talking about the building code, ain't you got no friends in the codes you can,
Not a one. They're just mean as snakes over there.
I got you.
So talking about PD, do you need more parking space also? I know that the fences were taken down on the front softball field for part of the expansion or whatever. What about additional parking needs and was mentioned up here, a fence? Would that be part of or could that be wrapped into the possibility of you all moving here and the cost of that? Or it might be a Gary question also. I mean, I'm trying to get a neat little package.
If the availability, if you would, if we are to come to this side as well with a breezeway connection or however we do it, obviously there's substantial parking in between the two departments, and then of course, if we need to have some addition, we have front, for employees that don't have take-home cars or whatever the case may be, our civilian or non-sworn positions. Now, with regards to any additional to the fencing or any of that stuff, that obviously, again, those costs will have to be based on bids out.
Okay,
And I
so
couldn't tell you what that would be.
Not a nice, neat little package, a one-stop shop thing.
Well, again, the intention was that we would have, the projection was hoping to have parking for up to 125 total over the course of 5 to 10 years, because we obviously want to increase the numbers as the need for our community and our citizens increases. So,
And then again, if this happens, would the front part of this be fenced in, or would that remain open, and then any potential fencing would be back behind?
This front part would be open because you would still have court up front and court in here, plus Boma in here, so that would remain for open parking.
I'm just trying to clarify where fencing might go and might not go, because,
Yeah.
okay.
the prime,
I don't know if y'all remember a couple of years ago, sorry.
no, you're fine.
That when they started talking about fence, it was when people were running cars into things and the First Amendment auditors were getting behind the building. So it was actually gonna be like an iron fence, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of cut across the roadway here that had an automatic gate. So only PD could access the back.
Oh,
And that's probably been 3 or 4 years in the making. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where the fence came in.
Obviously, safety-sensitive issues, that's just, we're coming out those back doors and we're wide open.
right.
And there's nothing that would stop if we were to have a general, event either from West near Shreveman, from the Blues, from the apartments across the way, or anywhere in the back, because it's open access for anybody to walk through.
Right.
And if they wanted to take somebody out, it would be very, very simple for it to be done. And that's very distressing to us and for our safety and for our employees.
I mean, I'm not
No.
disregarding it.
No, ma'am, I'm just
trying to,
explaining it. Yes, ma'am.
if this goes and what future planning would be and
All of
security.
this would have to be planned out as far as, City Hall moving and moving PD here, and we'd have to plan what we would have to do to make it all functional and work the way it needs to. But yeah, the front parking would have to stay open because of all the public meetings we'd still have to have in here.
Okay.
So we can bring this back up in the next few meetings and just think about it and talk about it. And I'm assuming that, whoever needs to know before this budget year is up, so we can,
Preferably before we start voting on the budget.
that's what I mean, before we start voting.
Bless you.
Yeah, it's all going to be dependent on what you as the board decide to do, whether, as far as what we tell the employees that work here, as far as how we're going to proceed in the future. And of course, we're still looking at probably a year to 2 years before the design and the build-out would be completed at the Public Works facility. So it's not like we're going to move
Right.
July 1st.
And you think that if that were to happen, once that got put away, that it would suffice for probably 5 years for the police department?
I mean, it would be a Band-Aid. I'm not saying it would suffice. They're still going to have a lot of needs, obviously, because it's obviously not a $40 million new building that they're getting, not the full amount of space that they need, but it would hopefully hold them over some until we can provide them with what they need.
Would the new Public Works building become City Hall?
No.
This would stay City Hall.
Yes, sir.
So technically, we're not moving.
Why would we
City Hall.
do that then? If all of our city, that don't really make sense to me that would be the new city hall.
It would be city offices. It's, you've got some cities that have city hall where you have some city business, which is what we would have. You'd have all your court process here, and then your Channel 3 and all your public meetings here. But then for your business offices, that would be over at the other building.
Would your office stay here?
We haven't talked about moving
We
mine.
haven't discussed
I was
that
just
yet, so,
wondering.
Yeah.
yeah, we haven't discussed exactly
I think
everything.
actually that's, I've only been down there a couple of times. I think that's the way Murfreesboro is. They've got City Hall, then they got city buildings and city offices. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we can just ask more questions, and I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I want our police to be, I want them to have room, I want them to be safe. If there's room in that building and it's not being utilized, I think it needs to be utilized. What do you think, Mr. Deeks?
It only makes sense to me. If you want to know my honest opinion, there's a lot of space over there, and I think the city can save money making that move.
They built you that brand-new, beautiful building, and now they're gonna take it from you.
Taking it over. Taking it over.
Oh, he's got a pretty wing of that whole thing.
Yes, he
with
does.
heaters and lots of storage.
And I would invite all of you, if you haven't already visited the building, to do so, because it is a nice building.
Except for the floor.
And the guys said that they were gonna keep the maintenance shop floor as pretty as it is right now.
Bruce,
Hey, that's what they said.
Bruce, for hypotheticals, would we bid out the work to a third party? Would we extend our contract with Barron to do it? Or, heaven forbid, I know he might throw something at me, but would any of David's team do the work?
I don't know that we could extend the Barron contract at that point, because we're still talking a year down the road. It's possible, I don't know.
We are looking at extending the architect. Same architect and doing a mod onto that contract, and that you'll be seeing that also should be in your next agenda. But it would be difficult, we're trying to close out the Barron contract because liquidated damages, warranty, everything clicks on, so to extend Barron would be contractually difficult.
Okay,
You'd have to rebid, you'd have to bid that expansion part out.
okay, because I didn't know with the sprinkler system and everything Gary was saying was done, if that's something that David's group could do in-house versus another, going through another group.
I'm sure they could do it, but I think they would be overloaded with everything else that has to be done around the city. And it would probably be better overall to bid it out and do it from a timeline standpoint.
That space, there's going to be HVAC work, that's very specific, and some adding sprinkler heads.
Okay.
Going back,
Something to think about.
going back to the police department, I had the pleasure of doing the CPA class in the early 2000s. Great class, highly recommend to anybody, but they were jam-packed in that facility then. So
It hasn't changed.
I'm just, so we need to do something for them. We need to act on that and plan ahead for it accordingly.
Is Captain Call still in the closet as far as his office?
Actually, I was in the closet. He had a bigger office. but
Okay.
I get upgraded to one just a smaller size, a little bit bigger than his.
Okay. And if y'all think that we're just joking around, they have, if you haven't been through PD, they have converted every closet, every nook and cranny to offices. So that's why I'm asking, is because that's the legitimate case.
Yes. And
So,
That's what I mean. If it's gonna cost us $2.5 million or whatever to put a 5-year Band-Aid on giving us the opportunity, or giving the city, whoever's sitting up here by that time, to maybe start looking at a new one, them guys, this men and women they need relief. They need, cause as the city grows and they get more police officers and
Bruce,
so on and so forth.
what kind of constraints would that put on departments that are moving over? Because that is essentially a confined area. And at least with the current plan of who's going over to Public Works, that was going to free up some space here around some of those departments. So what, if any, kind of constraints would there be with moving finance and HR and yourself over to that area? Taxes, I think taxes probably could go downstairs, but that open area.
Well, actually, I don't know if you've been made aware yet, we are going to go ahead and move tax over
Okay, I didn't know
now.
that.
So when water billing moves over here at the end of April, tax will be going over there as well, so that it's kind of a one-stop shop for your water payments, your business tax, your property taxes, et cetera.
Permits, all
So
that.
yeah, so that's going to go ahead and move. So all that we will have here from a payment standpoint will be city court
Okay.
after that.
So,
As
What-
far as constraints
For
for the
department.
other departments to move, I really don't know of any other than people getting used to us being in a different location.
okay.
What was the price tag on that Public Works building altogether?
28.
28,
With mine, it's turned about 29.
But we still have liquidated damages to figure out and everything, so that'll reduce it some, not a ton, but some. So,
Do you feel safer out there, Mr. Dietz, than you did over there on International?
Absolutely. And
Huh?
I said, yes, sir, absolutely. And I
Ain't
can tell you,
nothing falling in on your head or anything?
no, sir, we was actually over there, wrapping up this afternoon, moving some of the last, bit of our things. Well, we got that tornado warning, so, I was thinking, man, I wish I was at the new building right now. So,
It's got a shelter in it, don't it? Didn't I see a shelter?
No, there's no actual shelter, but the Public Works break room is completely, no windows, completely interior to the building, and there's lots of space completely interior to the building.
Okay.
Michael, are you gonna miss how that building used to sway in the wind?
not gonna miss that, but I will miss some things, I won't lie. We had some good memories in that building, but definitely like the new facility.
All right, so it's lots to think about.
So the condition of the current PD building, would it, a Band-Aid suffice, or the current PD building is good?
The current PD building will probably not fall over in the next 5 years.
knock on
And
wood.
that's about all I can say. I've been through it several times, and they've taken a great, considering how old it is, the police department has gotten maximum utilization and taken really good care of it, but it is an old building.
Was it 85,
89.
89?
So
So
it's
just,
4 years younger than what?
This building was built in 84.
okay.
And
So
before
just-
that was built, Andrew's office was the police department.
Yes.
Oh,
The whole back area, yeah.
There used to be a shower where Annie
Where tax department is now was where dispatch was.
I I know Bruce mentioned about like the politics of this, and I'm not up here to really get votes either, but I do think we need to at least explain to our constituents, because I can remember when I was running, everybody was all up in arms about the Public Works building, and they're gonna move City Hall over there. I'm trying to remember what the whole huff was it about, and I don't even remember.
I can give
Let-
you the skinny. It was just something that started back in 18 and the property, and I voted against it. Jason voted for it. I didn't understand it. As it turned out to be something good. We broke ground and moved on, but the people that don't like certain people on this board are gonna bring stuff up, and it's just gonna be like that. But when it comes to doing for these employees,
Right.
especially police, if it will benefit, then we will have, if it goes through, we'll have to listen to that. I told you it was going to be City Hall. I told you it was going to be City Hall. But hopefully there'll be a few of them. This is on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen to this discussion.
I didn't vote for a lot of public works stuff, but my concern was more just the financials of it. We had pending litigation that seemed to work out fine at the time, but I mean, it could have went really sideways on us. So I wasn't completely for public works since my time on this board, but I mean, now that the building's there and there's space available, it seems kind of silly not to do that.
That's a great
So
word.
I'm going to ask a hypothetical.
If,
I want everyone to understand this is an if. I'm not asking for this, and Danielle or Bruce can weigh in on this. If the board decided not to go this route and decided it wanted to build a $40 million police station now, what kind of tax increase would you be looking at on not just our residents, but on ourselves? How bad is it? Because if we're talking about communicating to the public about this, I think it's fair to
Do it.
you communicate both sides of it. I know I talk to a lot of people about wanting, whether it's tornado sirens, Old Nashville Highway widened today, Fergus widened today. Every time I mention we're going to have to do a large property tax increase, the statement is 9 times out of 10, oh no, the road is fine.
Right.
We're good.
Agree.
So, Bruce?
Well, I've had this conversation with Bruce a couple of times, but he seems to want to ignore me, but,
As do all of
I
us.
don't know about that.
used to, back in the day, I heard that there was a big money tree out back.
Yeah, I wish. If you want to fund, let's just say $25 million for South Waldron and Blair West, in addition to $40 million for the new police station. So you're looking at $65 million that you're wanting to bond out. The cost per million for a bond issue is roughly $75,000 per year in bond payments and principal and interest. So you're looking at an estimated annual bond payment of $4.8 million, almost $5 million. The property tax increase needed to fund just that bond issue would be right at 29 cents. We're currently at 53.63 cents. You add another 29 cents to that, you're at, 82 cents.
And I don't think anyone on the board, other than myself and probably Alderman Coates, were really floating around board meetings, just because Graham's been floating around as long as Bruce has been employed, pretty much. But I can remember whenever they did, when Mayor Mosley did the 50 cents increase, and that was an uproar in this community. It's the most packed I've ever seen the boardroom in my life.
And it was
So.
needed. It had to be.
But I like to get all the information, so that's why I was asking.
Well, and I've told this board before, I'll say it again. At some point, you've got to look at a property tax increase.
Right, when's the last time we did that?
Well, the last time we increased it was 2011, and it went from 50 cents to $1. And then I think in 2015, we lowered it by 5 cents. In 2016, we lowered it again by 5 cents. So took it down to 90 cents. We've had 2 reappraisals since that time frame. So the certified rate brought it down more. Now we got the same amount of revenues, but the rate came down to where it's currently at that 63 cents per $100 assessed value.
Wasn't there one more 5-cent drop?
I think we only did it twice.
I thought there was one, because I was on the board as alderman when we did it was in 18, and we had to call a special meeting. It was Alderman Jones, Mayor Waldron at that point, and myself it was the last vote or it was the vote on the budget.
I'd have to go back and look. I'm thinking there was only 2 times we lowered it. We also talked about lowering the water and sewer rates at one point, so I don't know if you're thinking about that.
I think because I made the motion about going with the certified rate, and I couldn't get a second, and then Calvin made the motion and Dennis seconded it, and I think that dropped it down by 5 cents.
I'd have to go look.
Well, let's don't talk about that, because with the way the economy's going, it may become a necessary evil.
Well, of course, we don't want to raise property
Right.
taxes. But the reason I say that is our costs are going up every year as well, and we cannot continue to absorb the higher cost per year forever. I mean, we have for the last few years, we've absorbed it. Thankfully, we've had some additional sales taxes come in, which has helped offset.
That's what I was going to say with the
But that's not
additional,
always guaranteed, so.
with the additional sales tax and economic team working hard.
And what we're looking at, obviously, if we do the $25 million bond issue for the 2 road projects now, that's just to cover the next 2 years of construction costs. So for the fiscal year 27, 28, 2 years from now, we're going to have to do another bond issue for the remainder of that project. So we'll be right back to talking about how we're going to fund that portion of it at that point. And I don't know if if we'll have enough sales tax dollars to cover it, or if we'll have to talk about a property tax increase at that point. It's too early to know.
That's too far out.
Right.
But at least for what we're discussing tonight, we have options at this point. We have information. So
There's a lot to think about.
I would say and we haven't gone through the rest of this stuff yet, but
Right.
whatever your decision is, I would ask that you email Bruce. Bruce, you want them to copy Danielle or Kyle?
Both would be great.
Copy both of them. If y'all can email them at some point and let them know your thoughts once you have them together. And that way, they will have the right direction to go for the budget when we start voting on it, to have it properly prepared.
And we need to copy Dolly.
Couldn't hurt.
Do you know Dolly's email?
Throw her in the fire. Get her warmed up.
Okay,
Be a good welcome.
Bruce, do you want to go through the rest of the capital?
Yes, sir, we can certainly look at the rest of capital.
Unless anyone's got more questions on all of that.
I'm sure I will have, or if somebody's watched this at home, they'll have questions.
And that's totally fine. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'll get you as much information as we can. So as you go down through the remainder of the capital list, you got the different department requests, the city administrator, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, the Motorola radio replacement, that's proposed in here. Finance department for 25-26, we're looking at budgeting software, which we talked about last year. We'd really like to get that rolling if possible. It would make lives a little easier as far as putting the budget together and everybody being able to view it better. For IT, we're looking at a replacement vehicle for that 20-year-old van that we've got that they
Glenn
use
loves
now.
that van.
So we're looking at a lease.
He loves it.
I don't know if he does. So
He hasn't objected so far, see?
does?
Glenn.
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 Glenn. So we're looking at a lease vehicle for them. They need to replace the Laserfish server, which is our document imaging system. And then they're looking at the purchase of 50 computers. You may or may not be aware that Windows 10 support is ending in October, and most all of our existing computers will not run Windows 11, so we have to update a lot of computers and change out. So that's why that request is there. Codes Department is requesting a new Ford F-150 because of their additional positions and older vehicles. The Police Department, we've already talked some about the Flock license plate recognition system. Flock is currently, or they soon will be hopefully, installing the test system that we're going to try for 60 days. Once that test is complete, we've got to decide whether we're going to move forward with Flock or stay with what we've got. So this is the $60,000 for that purchase, basically, for that. So that's why this is in the budget.
Bruce,
Yes.
just so that we know, so with the existing system,
Yes.
what's the yearly cost on that?
We currently do not have a yearly cost on that because we prepaid
Okay.
the 5 years of service fees for that.
Just wanting to make sure we have worst-case scenario, so if
This should be the worst case.
so, perfect.
Yep.
How many years are left on the current?
1 or 2.
Either 2.5,
Yeah.
maybe 3.
But there's issues there, so.
Well, I was just
Yeah.
talking about.
Right. Fire department, they don't have anything under facilities. If you'll notice, there's several sections here for fire, because Ronnie likes to plan.
Good man.
So you go down to the fire department PPE and communications at the bottom of page 1. You'll see the Motorola radio replacement, so I'll go ahead and talk about that. We need to replace, and Ronnie and Brent jump in anytime if you need to. We need to replace a lot of these older Motorola radios because the 7000 series does not have any support. You can't get parts or service or anything for them, and we have a lot of radios that are the 7000s. So if something happens to them, we have no radios. So the idea is to replace all of those radios. I think it's a total of 85 across the city. That's 30 for the fire department and 53 for the police department, 1 for city admin and 1 for streets. And that total cost project is $12,000 or $15,000. So we've split that between fire, police, and the police portion is on page 3.
Do they do that intentionally, where you can't fix them anymore? You can't,
Depends on who you talk to, yeah. It wouldn't surprise, and we've had those radios a long time.
Yes, we have.
So, things just, they don't function the same.
I've been on our third administration with the police department, and it seems like every time there's always a new type of radio that has to be replaced out. And that's how technology is now. It's designed to not withstand.
Right. So the police portion of the Motorola radios are under equitable sharing. That's $375,000. The $230,000 for fire is on, like I said, on page 1, and then you also have the $7,050 for city admin, and the same amount for the street department on the next page for that radio. So that's how that project would be distributed. And that's the only request for that section in the fire. If you look at the total for the fire department is $230,000, which is the radios. The street department, like I mentioned, this is on page 2. This is the $7,000 for that radio, And then Parks and Recreation are requesting 2 different vehicles, which both of these would be leased vehicles. They're both 3/4 ton trucks, one with a gooseneck, one without. And then they're also asking to replace the swing set at Veterans, which is $16,000. So if you add up all of the total new capital or one-time request, that is a total of $525,600. And then you get into the personnel request on the middle of page 2. Currently, we only have proposed an assistant city engineer, because like Gary said a minute ago, he's planning to retire, so we need to get
Vetoed.
somebody on board to
Vetoed.
be prepared to take that position over at some point in the future. We have 5 full-time patrol officers listed in here, and these would be hired January 1st, so this is only 1/2 year of the pay and benefits for those positions. And then under street department, we're looking at splitting a position between streets and stormwater, and so this $61,901 is half of the cost of that position for that manager over those 2 specific departments.
Bruce, can we hop back over to the fire department replacement for a minute?
Okay?
You can stay on page 2 with it.
Yes, sir.
So on here is to go ahead and order a new replacement pumper. And so if we do that, how long of a lead time is that? And what would roughly the cost be that we would either need to pay up front or when it's delivered?
I will defer to Ronnie on that.
The current lead time for a pumper, as we purchased this last time, would be no less than 24 months, and it could be out to 36. I would ask that we would do the same as we did last time, where we signed a letter of agreement. I can't remember what the terminology is.
Letter of intent.
Letter of intent. Yeah. And then we would, the good thing about that is when we sign that letter of intent, we sign that price today, not 3 years from now, or 24 months from now. So we're buying it at today's cost rather than delivery day cost. The ladder truck that's in there could be out to 48 months or more for delivery after order. There are times that the vendor that we have done business with in the city here the last few years, they buy spots in the queue, and so I can possibly grab one of those that's already destined to be made, but there's no guarantee of that.
Okay, not a problem. Sorry, we hopped over that, so I wanted
that's
to go
fine.
back to it so that we can go from there.
Sure. And as you can see, there's several engines and towers that they're going to need to replace over the next few years, because we bought the existing 4 ladder trucks in 2006.
14.
Was it 14? Okay.
15, 2015 is when they were purchased, I believe.
Yeah, I think we got them in 16, actually. So, yeah. So obviously, they're getting some age on them, and we have to start looking at replacements for those.
I would say, this is, again, my personal opinion, but if we're saying that the sooner we get a letter in on this pumper, the better the pricing kind of is, that we do that sooner rather than later.
The pumper that we purchased at $600,000 is over $850 the last time I asked. The very same fire equipment.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, so I've gone over the the personnel request. The total there is $448,905. So when you add the one-time request to the personnel request, we're looking at a total for new request of $974,505, which is that bottom number on page 2. And this is all general fund. Of course, in that totals for general fund, you still have the carryover items, the fund balance items, and the existing bond issue, but that doesn't include any of the new stuff. And as Danielle pointed out earlier, we're approximately $1.4 million revenues over expenditures now. That's been adjusted a few times. One adjustment we still have to make is for the leased vehicles that were approved Tuesday night. Those have not been built into the budget yet, so that's approximately $50,000 per year. So that will reduce that amount some, and we'll have that ready for our next meeting. So for general fund, that's where we are. We've talked about the streets capital projects. We've talked about some of the equitable sharing. So yeah, I think that's really all that we need to talk about at the moment as far as general fund. Also in front of you is this document. It's the one-page sheet, which is all of our major general fund projects like roads and buildings, things like that. So as you can see, there's a lot of money on here. We've already talked about the Blair West and South Waldron projects. If you look over to the column with 25-26 and 26-27 fiscal year, you'll see the same numbers here that are on that previous document for the next 2 years. And then, of course, it carries out for the South Waldron for the 4 years after that. You also have on here the Advanced Traffic Management System for Murfreesboro Road and Waldron Road. That is a $2.8 million project. The city's portion is $280,000, something like that. But of course, this is a grant-funded project, so whenever that project gets started, we'll get billed for that, and then we'll have to file for reimbursement on that. But we will get those funds back.
What is that? Them sidewalks and crosswalks and stuff?
I'm going to defer to Gary on that one again, because I don't
know. I've been waiting on that for 10, 12 years.
It is primarily the intersections, upgrading the intersections, putting in crosswalks, getting them all ADA compliant, and just all of the intersections running down Waldron Road and running down Murfreesboro Road.
Whatever happened to our sidewalks?
That scope changed after COVID and all the inflation and how much money they allocate versus how far it goes.
I don't even know what that means. Does that mean we ain't getting them?
It means the money doesn't match the costs to do
So
it.
we're gonna get new crosswalks and
Yes, sir.
things like
And
that.
the design's done, and they're in environmental permitting right now.
And hopefully that'll start this next
didn't know
year,
Yes.
construction-wise. Yeah.
Not happy about that.
No, we've been waiting on that.
It has been a while, yes, sir. You've also got on here, obviously, the Fire Station 43 renovation, the City Hall resident renovation. There's another project on here for overflow parking for the Fire Station 41, which would basically be across the street from the new building there, which, due to all of the events and trainings and things that we're having over there, we have found that there is a lack of parking. So that is a project that is needed. Don't know exactly when we'll be able to fund that, but that's on this list. Obviously, the police expansion.
Do we own that property across from 40?
Yes.
What about, whatever happened to that buying something there?
That was to negotiate with the church for the property back behind there, and that has not gone very far at all.
So the valuation that the church has and the valuation that the appraisal on it has is very different.
Really?
And so that's how it was prior to my administration and how it still is.
So the next line there is the police expansion. If you look at the construction cost, it's $40,725,000. Once you include the estimated engineering, Mayor, it does bring that up to 43. roughly, $1 million. You've got the Fire Station 44, which that's going to be a few years down the road. The fire training is probably going to become a public safety training center that will be combined with the police department. That's planned for down the road. There again, don't know exactly how far down the road. And then you've got the relocation of Fire Station 42, which there again, that's going to be several years out. So if you look at the total estimated cost for general fund for each fiscal year, you can see the high dollars there. And obviously, some of that's going to have to be moved down the list for future years because we don't have the ability to bond that with our current amount of revenues.
Danielle, you and Dolly can't find $174 million?
I don't know, but that fire department's bleeding us.
Tell me about it.
Just a comment,
When you kick the can.
just to comment on the rest of the board members, just want to, just on there, it says Fergus Road improvements. Just want to enlighten you a little bit. I'm involved, obviously, with Smyrna Airport. Smyrna Airport presently is in negotiations with the military to move the operations at Nashville down to Smyrna. And so what's going to happen, or is projected to happen, is the governor has already put in his budget to for the airport authority to sell the property to the state, and the state would then lease it to the military. What that means for us is the military is going to spend $400 million on the operation. The airport will then have to open up the gate at Jones Mill Road. So people coming off the airport will be coming off to Jones Mill Road and on to Fergus Road. That will include tractor trailers. That will include a whole bunch of vehicles every day. So although this is in motion, it'll take a couple of years to get going. We need to start planning ahead, not spend the money, but planning ahead for the road improvements from Jones Mill Road over onto Fergus Road. That's happening as we speak. That's starting to move forward. We need to plan ahead for that.
And Alderman Coates, that was one of the things that I had some conversations with Representative Desjardins with on my trip to D.C., and he was asking if we needed additional funding because they can pull extra DOD funding in to fund some of that. The big thing we have to do is this Fergus Road improvements isn't that Fergus Road improvements. This is where we've talked about double stacking roundabouts and doing some widening on that curve. I think with regards to that, what we need to look at is it's Jones Mill and Fergus, because if you have a tank carrier coming down, quite frankly, that's the road. If you have a tractor trailer coming down, that's the road for Jones Mill. And I very much doubt that today they can make that turn from Jones Mill, whether coming on Fergus or coming off of Jones Mill onto the road. So I know Deputy Chief Hatcher would love nothing to have tractor trailers stuck there. And I know Alderwoman Hobbs remembers tractor trailers at Blair getting stuck, as I do, trying to find routes around it. So that's what we would have right there. And this is one of our major corridors for Lake Forest, the largest subdivision in the state, to come in and out of. So I really think that we need to get a plan together on those two sections and then get some kind of dollar figure and have another sit down this time, I would say probably here with Representative Desjardins, and get that commitment and get something put into the federal budget to get that moving as soon as possible.
So if something like that goes through, gets going, is that left up to us to provide a road for big trucks and things for the airport, or does the airport pay for that, some of it?
DOD or?
So the airport authority wouldn't, but obviously the intent would be is historically, if we get the engineering done and be, quote, shovel ready federal funds and state funds would kick in, or could kick in.
When we talked about this a while back, you didn't tell me about the Fergus Road thing, but now that you brought it up, because somebody on this board lives on that, there is no way that two trucks can pass each other on Jones Mill Road. It can't happen. It's not going to. Two pickups can't hardly pass. And when you make that ride on the Jones Mill Road, them houses are right on top of the road. I don't know how that works. I mean, you'd have to, I used to drive an 18-wheeler. I know.
Well, this is the fun part of having an engineer or having an engineering consulting group, because we can say, figure it out.
All the way down through there.
Yeah, and that's part of it. But Representative Desjardins on board. We've got a great relationship with Senators Haggerty and with Senator Blackburn. We're going to go through in a couple of weeks, sitting down with as far as going through some grant opportunities that can help police, fire, and the city. But this DOD is an opportunity as far as funding, but we have to get our ducks in a row on designing it and figuring out a cost to design it and everything like that. Or just have Gary stay up all night and work on it.
And with my prior military service, military vehicles and civilian vehicles really don't mix either. So, yep. So, especially if convoys are coming out to go to annual training and stuff like that, it's, yeah, have a tank on the road? Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, if what you say is true, that needs to be,
It's what, 5 years off, Graham?
The budget from the governor for them to purchase the property is in next fiscal year.
No, I mean, as far as the actual army moving in.
So that is soon upon them purchasing the property, but we would estimate, 3 to 5 years, this thing's happening.
Okay. Because they've got to take down some hangars, right?
Right.
Okay.
But again, they're asking the Pentagon for $400 million to do this.
well, they can give us, we're not greedy, 20 million,
So Steve, I'll get you on that subcommittee and you can go and,
do the road.
I'll leave that one with you. Okay, so Bruce, Steve said he's gonna go and get the money, okay?
That's a tough one, man, because that's what I was doing, was trying to track down money.
So if you look at that line item for Fergus Road, it's estimated to be a 2.3, roughly $2.8 million project with the right-of-way acquisition. We've already spent almost $200,000 on probably engineering and design, and I don't know, how much of that will be usable with the new plan, with the idea of trucks coming through there in addition to Jones Mill. So that would be a whole nother scope that we would have to put out for proposals.
Essentially, we'd have to cut off the Jones Mill Road portion and look at that first intersection over by Miss Dottie's that everyone likes to drive through the sign, and then the curve, and that's what we were looking at because of where people go off the road so much.
Right, but now you're going to have to look at the whole road.
So, well, that's Jones Mill and Fergus.
Right.
So, but
So we'll have to talk more about that as far as cost and getting the engineering work done on that. And Kyle knows more about that than I do, so
and I say this, it's not necessarily popular because it's expensive, but we've got to do it right. We've got to put in the curb, we've got to put in the sidewalks through there, because we all complain there's no sidewalks in our neighborhoods unless we're in a newer neighborhood. Well, we're going in and doing that work. We need to do it the right way. Danielle's just sitting there going, where's the money for all this? Bruce, you got more for us?
not really. Obviously, the projects that are kind of in the orange, pink color, purple, pink color, I'll get it right in a minute. Those are projects that are currently kind of on the back burner because of funding issues. And so, of course, the safe room is, we don't know what's happening with that. More
Kyle
money
is-
is going to have to be allocated through FEMA to make that possible. Old Nashville Highway is obviously a road project that's going to have to wait several more years before we can tackle that one. We've already talked about Fergus, the Sam Ridley connector, the Mason Road realignment, Hickory Street, all of these, we're going to have to put off for several years until we get some of these current projects completed. So it's all about timing and how we're going to pay for it.
It's all about time and money.
That's right.
That's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. I didn't understand it for a long time, is people talk about infrastructure and it's hard to keep up with the infrastructure because it takes money to do that. And until some of the infrastructure gets built to pay for some of the roads and stuff, and, you can't just do the moratorium like a couple of cities have tried. It's catch-22.
Well, and obviously, and we've had this discussion before as well, we didn't do anything for so long as far as building various projects that we needed. Now we're having to pay more to get those projects completed, so it hurts, and it takes more money now to build anything than it ever did before, so.
And we've been rolling hard and fast for 6 years
It
on
would have,
land, buildings. I mean,
it would have been easier to keep up than it is to catch up.
Correct.
But you know what? We're gonna muddle through, weather through it, and, people like Andrew take a pay cut,
We're gonna hunker down.
we're gonna hunker down.
I think Andrew would like to volunteer his time to the city.
well, see, we really need to get him on the same plan Kyle is on. Our assistant city administrator, we rent out his office to him, the vehicle. He has to pay for the clothing, all of it. And if Bruce moves over to Public Works, we are going to be doing the same to him.
I don't doubt it.
I'll grab a box on my way out tonight and you're all set to go.
No.
No. I do have one more thing to discuss, and that's the listing of nonprofits. Jules handed the sheets out to you. And so I have the listing from 2020 to 2025. And then the last column is the requests that I've received thus far. There's a couple of them that I did email to see if they were going to submit requests. If you would like to see the ones that I have received, I have those here. And I can make copies or email them out to you if you would like.
I saw they built the forensic building. We voted against,
They've approved building
they've
it.
approved it.
Yes.
But we voted against sending the money, right?
No, Mayor Carr withdrew his request from all cities because he had already, before we had made a decision, he had already heard back from Smyrna and Murfreesboro that they weren't going to move forward with it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Deputy Chief Hatcher, do y'all have much contact with CASA?
To be quite honest, I'm not even familiar with what that is.
Oh, never mind. They haven't requested for several years. There's Child Advocacy Center. This is new formatting, so it's taking a minute.
We normally have contact with the Child Advocacy Center.
Yeah, I can see them in here now.
This year.
They're in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Just again, different formatting.
Okay.
So the ones, that are over here that's blank, that's not asking for nothing, you have those?
If it's blank, I have not received a request. The ones that I have received, I have those.
And they have until when?
Technically, the time frame has already passed. The deadline's typically March the 1st. But we'll have to check with some of these to see if it was an oversight on submitting, because I know Chamber of Commerce, Destination Rutherford, and Economic Development, I'm surprised that that's not in here.
It is,
Don't,
it is.
But don't,
Is it?
and I'm
Part
not
of it
being-
is.
I'm not being cynical. But there's some of these that's been doing this every year since I've been on this board. Do we just keep allowing them to do that?
That's our choice. It's part of the budget. So if you want something included or excluded, then you email, not the board, but Danielle and Dolly and Bruce. And,
But we vote on it.
yes, ultimately we vote, and a budget is put forward, and then we can propose any changes. And
'Cause I mean, I don't have anything against them. It's just, it seems like every year, it's the same ones.
And speaking of which, not next week, but the week after the budget workshop for that week, we will invite the nonprofits to attend and talk to the board. I just need you guys to let us know which ones you want us to invite to be there to speak. So when you send your emails to Danielle, Dolly, and myself, be sure to let us know if you want any of these specifically to be here to present to the board as far as why they are requesting the donation that they are.
Danielle, did you, I dropped off back in finance the EMA request with Rutherford County. Did you not get that?
Yes, I'll have to put that in here,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So we can't talk about this right now,
We
just to
can't.
get an opinion?
We can. That's the whole point of this.
Okay, so, Paul's asking for $30,000.
They asked for that last year.
They
And
ask,
that- and-
ask every year.
And that money specifically is not for additional dog catching services. It's for the spay and neuter service. That's what, at least each year they come back and say, and I think that's part of their letter.
What's the other cities put in, do we know?
Some do, some don't.
Well, obviously, we're not gonna vote and give them $30,000. I wouldn't think. But do we wanna give them something?
I can tell you I do not. We have issues with stray dogs, aggressive dogs. There were over by Rock Springs this past year where you had one dog that was hit by a car and one dog that was aggressive. So Paws came out, they picked up the injured dog, left the aggressive dog, and I had to call back and say, do we just need to wait until a child is bitten at the school for y'all to come pick up the dog? And so they eventually came back from Murfreesboro and picked up said dog. It shouldn't take that much effort for animal control to come pick up stray animals that are loose in the community.
How do they do with you all, Michael?
I mean, we really just utilize it for dead animals, which.
Deceased.
Or deceased animals, thank you, sir, for the correction. However, they,
I got scolded on that one day on Facebook.
but that, to my understanding, they sub that work out. So we call them, they respond, to my knowledge, again, they seem to do a good job in that regard. Haven't received many complaints, so we call them, they respond, within proper timing, I guess, if you will, but I think that's something we could look at, probably bidding out that services if we wanted to, or looking at different options.
Bid it out, who
Bid
does
it
it?
out if we needed to go out and hire a contractor to do that in-house versus going through Paul's. Because if we don't donate to them, they may not be as quick to respond to that service.
That'd probably be my only reason to wanna give them something. I mean,
Well-
I've called Michael several times about different animals, and Paws has come out and got it, but I'm with you. I don't think they do a very good job as far as the other, but
And again, this is money going for the spaying and neutering program, is what it would go to.
well, that's what it goes to, but I'm sure that, you know,
Remember.
yeah, there's a word in there I'm looking for, and I don't know what it is. Remember is a good word.
I would definitely say, Bruce, I want to hear from Club Knockout. I'm familiar with their program, but we've jumped from 15 to 38 over the years, 15, 25 to 38. So that is a tough pill to swallow on a very tough budget. So I will reach out to Paul, Danielle, at the chamber, see if I can get you those other two numbers that you're missing. And I want to say GNRC had sent over a letter as well.
Okay.
And then I know RTA, we've got their amount in, and they did have an increase. That's, RTA is the bus service that goes through the city. So everybody's getting pretty much hit. And Bruce, weren't you on that email?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you see that pain. You got
So what do you know about the special kids, the domestic violence?
I know nothing on that other than what's in that letter, and I plan on reading through those letters probably over the weekend at some point, because
I'll send these to you.
I was
Thank you.
gonna
All
say,
members.
we don't have those, do we?
she's got the hard copies.
Yeah, okay.
I usually sit down and just read through them each year, see what's on there.
All right.
So, and it should have everything in there, why they're wanting money, their financials, that kind of stuff. Show that they're a viable organization. So, and then I'm going to say this, and Deputy Chief Hatcher, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think everybody is pretty much well aware of what the Child Advocacy Center does. I don't see a need for them to come and speak to us about it. This is just me. At the same time, I don't see us not moving forward with the funding for them. So, if anyone else feels different, they've spoken every year. I know I've heard it. I think everyone's heard it at least twice at this point, and that way it's kind of respectful of their time if everyone's familiar with it and doesn't have an issue with that.
No, I agree with that. I mean, there's some of them, but, GNRC hadn't asked for nothing?
They have. There's a letter that was sent over, and if you can't find it, I'll just reach out to them and get that amount. That's the the regional council for all of pretty much the metropolitan area for planning. And then the Emergency Management Agency Director's salary is shared between all of the municipalities and the county. That's an agreement that's been in place for years. Health Department is the Health Department. The Chief of Police Association, have they started actually requesting the money?
I haven't had any communications to tell me so.
Okay, because I know that was mentioned in the past, back before Phyllis left, was that just about every year it was in the budget, but they never requested the actual check. So, just want to make sure that they do that if there's going to be money allocated. So,
I'll get on the horn
Yeah.
with them tomorrow.
And I've looked through in Box 55, would they be in the nonprofit, or are they coming out of
Professional service.
professional services? Okay, I just wanted, because this would be the first year that they would actually be in the budget, so, okay, thank you.
I thought they had a year, and then we would look at it or something.
we had the agreement was to get to July, to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
I thought.
I got you.
Ronnie, am I wrong?
We have a budget amendment to do to pay that. It was not budgeted last year. Is that correct?
I'm not
He's
sure.
asking how long is it?
Oh, how long? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It was, it's for 1 year. It begins in July.
So yeah.
I think it renews
It
automatically.
renews every July.
What about, 50 Forward?
That would be.
That's the senior center.
Senior center.
That's the money you talked about
That's it.
earlier,
Yeah.
the 279 or whatever that is.
Chief Hatcher, I know I'm picking on you again, but DVSA, domestic violence and sexual assault. Are you familiar with that group?
Yeah, their functions are, again, when rape kits and helping out with domestic violence as far as placements. If they need shelters or places that they need to take the families to get them out of their situations.
I would say both them and whatever Special Kids is,
Okay.
we'd want to see, because this is the first time for them to be participating or potentially participating with any of this.
Would you all like to hear Paul's, or am I the only one that'd like to give them a little bit of money?
I'm not interested, but
That's why it's called.
should call somebody from office.
I can just tell you our experience with calls is not good. They never respond. We had a stray a couple months ago, tried to call them to come pick it up, nobody would answer the phone. One of our employees took it up there as a City of Vergne employee to drop off a stray dog, and they would not take it because we did not make an appointment. So that dog came back to our shop, and a couple of our employees took it home over the course of, this was during winter, until we could foster a home for it. That's just our experience with it.
Same story with codes enforcement cases, to echo what Dave just said, same thing.
It's my bedtime.
That's a lot of eye rolling.
any other questions on nonprofits? Okay, I think that's it for tonight. So we will reconvene Tuesday.
And I may or may not be here.
Call this meeting or this workshop adjourned.